Hi there. I thought I'd show today how I make the numbers that appear over the text when it gets knocked over. There, that text right there. Ooh, we got lots of garbage in this bin. Yeah, so let's talk about how that gets done. As you well imagine, the floating points is a prefab. So let's take a look at this prefab. It's a pretty simple prefab. It has my floating point text component that I'll explain in a moment. It has an audio source that's just going to play the sound. And also it has a Text Mesh Pro component on here, and I've got the font and everything all set up how I want it to. The default color is just white, so that's there. And the canvas itself, which is set to world space, has an animator on it. And basically all that animation does is it's just going to make the text float up and dissolve out. So let's take a look at this right here. Here is the floating point text. So I've got the public text, the source, and some animation curves. That's just to help determine some of the sounds and everything. When it is initialized, and you'll notice it's actually not being initialized in awake or start or anything like that. It's when it's instantiated, the trash item, which I'm going to get into in a moment, it is going to instantiate this floating point text object, and it will do the initializing. So it's going to be destroyed after 2 seconds, just over 2 seconds, because I know the animation, it just floats up and it takes 2 seconds, so that's that. I'm going to adjust the volume and the pitch because I've decided that they are going to be adjusted by the value of the point itself. So the higher the point, the higher the pitch, and the louder it is, all that kind of fun stuff. For the point text, I clear out the Text Mesh Pro text field. If it is greater than 0, then we're going to do a plus sign there. Strange I don't have a negative yet. There should be a negative. Whatever, I'll come back to that later. And then we're going to, adding on to the text, we're going to add the point value, which is, it is a float, but we're going to turn it into a string. And also we're going to adjust the color. And it's also worth pointing out that in the update, I have a transform.lookAt so that it is always looking at the camera. So let's take a look at this right here. Show points. I'm going to back up a hair. When the piece of trash is instantiated, let's take a look at the trash. That's probably an important thing to see. Trash items. What should we look at? Let's take a look at the fishbone because it's kind of cool. Here's a fishbone piece of trash. Its child object is the mesh itself. I have the mesh collider on it, so that's simple enough. Let's look at the parent. All of my trash have the same parent, which has a rigid body and an audio source. And then I've got this trash item component, which has a whole bunch of things. We're not going to get into everything here. But things to note is that I have the player color as a scriptable variable. So the player point is blue, the nemesis point is orange. Those only come into play if there's a challenge happening. Otherwise, it just remains white. And also the score is calculated for each piece of garbage after it stops moving. And I need, so I have a scriptable variable of an int, and that is tied into the UI and all that other stuff. And so that's how I add up the scores. And so I'm not going to get into all those points, but it is also worth pointing out that I have a points prefab normal and a points prefab special. The special is usually like if it's an edible piece of trash. I'm not going to get into that today. But let's take a look at the trash component. So here's the trash item component. But suffice to say, a whole bunch of stuff happens, including calculating, once it says it's basically stopped moving, it's time to score the trash. So we're going to score the trash. Scoring the trash, this does all the calculating of how far. So points calculated, and that's going to be based on how far it is, and are we doing colors and all that kind of stuff. Then here's the part that is going to be of most interest to the person in the Discord channel that I saw asking, how do I do floating points? It's this right here. I'm going to show points. It's going to be based on the score that I want it to display. And also I'm setting it which prefab, and that is because if it's an edible thing, it gets extra points and it's a different prefab. So show points. So here we have a game object that is going to be instantiated, and it is the prefab point. In this case, normally it's going to be the prefab points normal. And I'm also sending over the value of the score. So it's going to instantiate this. It's going to instantiate it at the location of the trash item. And the quaternion, it just needs a default. It doesn't matter because if you remember, the look at is going to just change that anyways. That's fine. But then here's the crucial thing, and this is what's going to be most valuable to the person who was asking, how do I change the points, the value of the damage, is I do a get component floating point text, and I'm going to initialize it. I'm going to send over the point value, and I'm going to send over the color, which is calculated above. And that's it. So when my trash is created by the trash bin, the trash bin will select, see, here's all the different trash that it might choose. Edible trash, not edible trash. So it's going to choose a piece of garbage, and then it's going to instantiate the piece of garbage. And then once the piece of garbage stops moving, based on its, once the rigid body says it's asleep, that's when it'll start scoring. And so let's take a look at this in action. And actually what I'll do is, instead of going to this garbage bin, well, yeah, we'll do this one first. There we are. Let's make some more garbage come out. And actually I have it set up so that if you spread out the garbage even more, it'll score more points. So it's just instantiating another one, and you'll see that the floating points are appearing here in the hierarchy. I'm not parenting it to anything because I don't think it's all that necessary. Let's go over to the Nemesis here. And once I get over here, the Nemesis raccoon is going to come running over to me. I accept. 3, 2, 1. And you'll see it's going to go over to that one. I'll let it go over to that one, and you'll see that its garbage has orange points. Oh. Orange points, yay. Now, can I get to this guy before? Nope. Okay, I'm gonna skip that one because I want to show you the blue points. Oh, crap. Oh, can I get there? Ah. Are you kidding me? He got the points? Jerk. Well, trust me, if I got there before him and was the last one touching the garbage bin, those would have been blue points. So that's what it is. That's how I got the floating points that calculate damage on it. See, because that Nemesis knocked over this bin, all these points I'm making because I'm spreading out the garbage, it's getting the points. All right, let's see if I can get over. No, don't climb. Oh my gosh. My own AI has just totally kicked my ass. Anyway, that is how I do the floating points, and I hope that this has been of some value to you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up.